On December 16, 2004, in the small town of Skidmore, Missouri, the unthinkable happened. 23-year-old Bobby Jo Stinnett, a young woman who was 8 months pregnant, was found brutally slain inside her own home. Her unborn baby had been cut from her womb and abducted, sparking a desperate nationwide search that would shock the community and test the limits of law enforcement. The perpetrator was soon revealed to be Lisa Montgomery, a woman whose lies, jealousy, and desperation led her to commit one of the most disturbing crimes in American history. What began as an online friendship turned into a calculated plan of violence, ending with the death of the young woman and the theft of her child's identity. Welcome back to the channel, and today we unravel the disturbing case of Lisa Montgomery. From the chilling crime in Missouri to her final moments on death row, this case remains one of the most haunting and unforgettable in American true crime history. Lisa's story leaves us with an unsettling question. How does a person reach a point where desperation and delusion drives them to commit such unimaginable acts? Lisa Montgomery was born prematurely on February 27, 1968, to her mother Judy, who was struggling with alcoholism. The combination of her early birth and her mother's heavy drinking caused permanent brain damage. Lisa's father also suffered from mental illness, and the family lived in severe poverty. In the middle of this difficult environment, Lisa found comfort in her siblings, but when their father abandoned the family, the children were left to endure Judy's violent and neglectful behavior without any protection. Judy's abuse was constant and severe. She beat her children with belts, cords, hangers, forced them to take freezing showers, and even punished them by making them eat raw onions. If Lisa refused her food as a toddler, she would then be strapped into her high chair and forced to stay there for hours. Judy also silenced them by taping their mouths shut. Her cruelty extended to disturbing acts, including killing the family dog in front of her children and forcing Lisa to strike her sister with a board until she bled. While Judy went through multiple marriages and relationships, she often left her daughters with babysitters while she spent nights at bars. At just 3 years old, Lisa lay beside her sister, then 7, as the babysitter repeatedly assaulted them. Their mother ignored the abuse, even punishing them further by stripping them naked and forcing them to stand outside. These events added to the cycle of trauma that Lisa was forced to endure from an early age. When social services were finally alerted, Lisa's sister was removed from the home and placed into foster care, where she flourished. Lisa, however, was left behind, and without her sister, she became the sole target of Judy's abuse. The situation got even worse when Judy married Jack, who became Lisa's stepfather. From the age of only 11 years old, Lisa was subjected to ongoing assaults by Jack and other men who beat her if she resisted. At one point, Lisa even ran to the police to report that she had been getting assaulted. Instead of offering her protection, officers returned her to her mother, who continued to enable the abuse. Her stepfather even built a room off the trailer, only accessible from the outside, where Lisa was forced to live in isolation. He claimed he was preparing her to be a wife while assaulting her repeatedly. On one occasion, Judy walked in during an assault, pointed a gun at Lisa's head, and blamed her for betraying her. At school, the warning signs were visible. Lisa often appeared dirty, wore ill-fitting hand-me-down clothing, and showed obvious signs of withdrawal. Teachers noticed she had trouble focusing, frequently lost her train of thought, and sometimes spoke in the third person. Her grades eventually plummeted, leading to her placement in special needs classes. Although her teachers suspected problems at home, no action was ever taken, leaving Lisa trapped in a cycle of relentless abuse and neglect. In 1985, Judy and Jack divorced, and Lisa testified in court about the years of abuse she had endured. The judge criticized Judy for failing to protect her daughter, but did not take further action, even though the abuse could have been prosecuted. Following the conclusion of their legal process, Lisa was sent back to live with her mother, where the mistreatment continued. Lisa later confided in a cousin about what was happening at home, telling him how her mother brought men into the house who assaulted and beat her. Although he was shocked, he did nothing to intervene. Like many others in Lisa's life, he stayed quiet, leaving her to face the abuse on her own. At the age of 17, Lisa finally found some hope when she joined an Air Force summer program. She thrived in the structured environment and wanted to enlist permanently, believing it would provide an escape from her home and her chance at finally having some stability. Those plans were derailed when Judy remarried a man named Richard Bowman. Soon after, Lisa became involved with his son Carl. In 1986, shortly after graduating from high school, Lisa and Carl married. The marriage quickly became another source of violence in Lisa's life. Carl was abusive, beating and assaulting her while recording the acts on video. Lisa's half-brother later confirmed that he had seen one of those tapes, but admitted he did nothing at the time. The couple lived in extreme poverty, just as Lisa did when she was young. Their house lacked proper floors and walls, had no running water, and offered little more than exposed wires and bare space. Despite the conditions, Lisa gave birth to 4 children between 1987 and 1990. Their children slept on the floor due to their lack of beds. After her 4th child, Lisa underwent a tubal ligation, a procedure she was forced to have by Carl and Judy, which permanently ended her ability to have any more children. By 1994, Lisa separated from Carl, began an affair, and claimed to be pregnant. The turbulent relationship with Carl continued through divorce, reconciliation, remarriage, and finally a second and permanent divorce in 1998. In 1999, Lisa relocated to Melbourne, Kansas, a small town of fewer than 500 residents about 40 miles south of Topeka. Life there moved slowly, and the community was tight-knit. It was in that small town that Lisa met Kevin Montgomery, a divorced electrician. The two then began a relationship that quickly grew serious. In the year 2000, before they were married, Lisa told Kevin she was pregnant and intended to have an abortion. Kevin handed her $40, believing her, and the matter was dropped. Lisa's pregnancy was never mentioned again. By 2002, Lisa introduced the story once more, claiming she was expecting another child. She assured Kevin, as well as her friends and family, that she was receiving regular prenatal care from her doctor. Whenever Kevin offered to attend her appointments with her, she refused. Later, her physician confirmed that he had in fact seen Lisa, but only for routine issues such as ankle pain and a cold, never for prenatal visits. When her supposed due date came and went, Lisa told Kevin that her baby had died and she had chosen to donate his body to science. Kevin blindly accepted her explanation without any further questions. In April of 2004, Lisa crossed paths with a woman who would play a central role in the story. At a dog show in Abilene, Kansas, she met Bobby Joe Stinnett, a well-liked breeder of rat terriers known for her kindness and gentle spirit. Both women were members of an online forum for breeders called Ratter Chatter, where they bonded not only over their dogs, but over their pregnancies. Bobby Joe shared her excitement about becoming a mother for the first time, and Lisa joined by announcing she too was expecting. Lisa's fake pregnancy just so happened to have a due date in December, just weeks before Bobby Joe's. Their online conversations included lighthearted exchange about maternity clothes, food cravings, and baby names. Bobby Joe had no idea Lisa had undergone a sterilization procedure years earlier and could not get pregnant. Lisa went to great lengths to keep her illusion alive. She continued to buy more maternity clothes, wore them daily, and convincingly portrayed the physical signs of pregnancy. Lisa even gained weight and faked pregnancy symptoms. Even Kevin and her children accepted her story, seeing nothing unusual. Her lies were not only for the appearances, but also coincided with a bitter custody battle. That same spring, her ex-husband Carl sought custody of their 2 children still living with Lisa. Many believe that Lisa faked her pregnancy to present herself as a nurturing, expecting mother, hoping to win favor in court. As the months passed, both Bobby Joe and Lisa's households prepared for the births of their babies. In the fall of 2004, Carl intensified his fight for custody over Lisa's children. He and his new wife had begun sending Lisa emails directly accusing her of lying about her pregnancy. They insisted they knew the truth and threatened to expose her in court. They even told Lisa her lies would be used against her in their custody petition. Lisa, however, refused to admit anything. She assured them she would prove them wrong, clinging to the deception as pressure mounted around her. On December 10, 2004, Carl officially filed a motion to change custody of the 2 children. Just 6 days later, Lisa's carefully constructed lies set into motion a chain of events that no one could have imagined. What followed was a shocking tragedy that left families broken, a community reeling, and the nation horrified. On December 15th, 2004, Lisa reached out to Bobby Joe using a false identity. At the time, Bobby Joe had advertised a litter of puppies for sale, and Lisa pretended to be a potential buyer. The two women arranged to meet the following day. Although Lisa was living in Melbourne, Kansas, she lied to Bobby Joe, claiming she was from Fairfax, Missouri, a small town near Skidmore. That evening, Bobby Joe casually told her husband and her mother, Becky Harper, that a woman from Fairfax planned to stop by to see the puppies. There was nothing unusual in her tone. Bobby Joe had no reason to suspect the danger that was about to walk into her home. The following day, Lisa made the drive from Melbourne to Skidmore, pulling up to the Stinnett residence around 12:30 p.m. Hidden inside her jacket pocket was a kitchen knife and a long white cord, items that revealed her true intentions. Bobby Joe greeted her guest warmly, and together the women spent time outside with the puppies. They appeared to be engaged in a friendly visit, the sort of interaction that seemed routine in their close-knit community. At around 2:30 p.m., Bobby Joe received a call from her mother, confirming plans to give her a ride home from work at 3:30 p.m. The call ended, and Bobby Joe went back to entertaining her visitor, unaware that her life was in imminent danger. For nearly 2 hours after the call, the two women remained inside Bobby Joe's home. At some point during that window, Lisa launched her attack. She used the cord to strangle Bobby Joe until she lost consciousness, then pulled out the knife and began cutting into her abdomen. The excruciating pain caused Bobby Joe to wake up, and she struggled with all the strength she had left. In the chaos of that fight, Lisa tightened the cord once more, strangling Bobby Joe a second time and ending her life. With the young woman deceased, Lisa proceeded with her plan, cutting the baby from her womb, severing the umbilical cord, and carrying the newborn away from the house. Lisa drove a short distance before stopping to tend to her new baby. She clamped the umbilical cord and suctioned mucus from the baby's mouth until the child let out a cry. Aside from a small cut above her eye, the newborn was unharmed. Lisa cleaned the baby with wipes, carefully placed her in a car seat that she had stashed in the trunk, and continued her drive towards Topeka, Kansas. The child she had just stolen was still alive, and Lisa intended to present her as her own. Back in Skidmore, Bobby Joe's mother grew increasingly anxious when her daughter failed to answer her phone or arrive at 3:30 as she promised. Trusting her instincts, she walked over to Bobby Joe's home, where she encountered a scene that no mother should ever have to witness. Bobby Joe was lying in a pool of blood, her body bearing catastrophic injuries. In shock, her mother described it as though her daughter's stomach had exploded. She immediately called authorities. Paramedics rushed to the home and worked desperately to save Bobby Joe, but despite their efforts, she was pronounced dead after being transported to a nearby hospital. Meanwhile, Lisa was already weaving her cover story. At around 5:15 that same day, she phoned her husband Kevin, claiming she had gone into labor while Christmas shopping. She told him she had given birth at the women's center in Topeka, though no such delivery had ever been recorded. The next morning, Lisa paraded the infant in public. She brought the baby, her husband, and two teenage sons to a local restaurant for breakfast, proudly presenting the new baby as her own. Kathy Sage, the owner of the Whistletop Cafe in Melbourne, remembered Lisa showing off the newborn. Later that day, Lisa even took the baby to church, introducing her to others as Abigail, a name she claimed to have chosen from the Bible. Lisa was doing everything she possibly could to convince everyone in the town that baby was hers. The investigation into Bobby Joe Stinnett's brutal slaying quickly gained urgency. Authorities pushed for an Amber Alert to help track down the missing infant, but the request initially faced resistance. Officials argued that the system had never been used for an unborn child, and without a physical description of the baby, it created a large amount of confusion. The delay threatened to hinder the search, but Congressman Sam Graves intervened. With his involvement, the alert was issued, and the case began drawing national attention. Every minute counted, and law enforcement knew the newborn's survival depended on swift action. Meanwhile, Lisa was unaware at just how close the investigators were. On December 17th, after she and her husband left the cafe where she had been proudly displaying the infant, FBI agents were already waiting outside her home. Just before arriving there, investigators had discovered that the last email Bobby Joe ever received was from Lisa. When Lisa and Kevin finally made it home, investigators clearly saw Lisa carrying the baby into the house. It was at this moment that the agents decided it was time to move in. Their response team moved in immediately. Kevin answered the door, and they found Lisa calmly seated on the sofa, holding the baby while the Amber Alert flashed on the television. Sergeant Investigator Randy Strong explained that they were investigating Bobby Joe's murder and asked about the infant. Lisa, seemingly unfazed, claimed she had given birth at the woman's clinic in Topeka. She directed Kevin to fetch her hospital discharge papers from the truck outside, but after searching thoroughly, he returned empty-handed. The absence of any documentation raised immediate doubts about her story. Investigators requested to speak with Lisa outside, and she agreed, even allowing an officer to briefly hold her baby. Once outside, her story changed again. Lisa now claimed that her financial troubles had prevented her from giving birth at a hospital. She then insisted she had delivered the baby at home, secretly without her husband's knowledge. According to Lisa, 2 friends had guided her through the delivery by phone, though none had physically been present. She claimed the birth had taken place in her kitchen and that she disposed of the placenta in a nearby creek. The inconsistencies piled up and investigators pressed Lisa harder. At Lisa's request, the questioning was moved to the sheriff's office. Once there, within the span of only an hour, her fabricated accounts unraveled completely. Under pressure, Lisa finally confessed to her crime. She admitted to strangling Bobby Joe, cutting into her womb, and abducting the baby as her own. The shocking confession brought clarity to the case and marked the end of her elaborate deception. The newborn, surprisingly unharmed, was safely recovered and placed in the custody of her grieving father. To eliminate all doubt, DNA testing was conducted, conclusively proving the infant was in fact Bobby Joe's. With the evidence confirmed and Lisa's confession in hand, authorities had the truth. Lisa Montgomery had faked a pregnancy, orchestrated a brutal plan, and carried out one of the most shocking crimes in recent memory. Based on the severity of the case, the government announced it would pursue the death penalty. The defense responded with a motion to bar capital punishment, arguing there was no proof the kidnapping directly caused Bobby Joe's demise, but the court denied it. Lisa's legal team then filed a notice of insanity defense supported by claims of mental disease. 2 medical experts diagnosed her with depression, borderline personality disorder, post-traumatic stress disorder, and false pregnancy. The government's expert, Dr. Park Dietz, agreed with the first 3, but rejected the idea of the false pregnancy. During her sessions with attorneys and investigators, Lisa claimed her half-brother Tommy accompanied her to Bobby Joe's home on December 16, 2004. She even took a polygraph test that indicated no deception, but the court excluded this evidence. Investigators later confirmed her brother had a solid alibi as he was with his parole officer at the time of the incident. The defense was further weakened when the court ruled that Lisa's PET scan results could not be admitted, saying they were too broad to prove the idea of false pregnancy. Internal conflict also plagued Lisa's defense team. Experts recommended bringing in Judy Clark, a respected attorney experienced with trauma victims. Although Clark worked effectively with Lisa, her colleagues accused her of being obstructive. A motion was made by attorney Dave Owen that secretly petitioned the judge for her removal. The judge reluctantly agreed, cutting off Clark's contact with Lisa. This absolutely devastated Lisa, leaving her sleepless, unable to eat, and emotionally unstable. When the trial began, the defense argued Lisa acted in a delusional state of dissociation, pointing to her purchase of maternity clothing, baby items, and a birthing kit. The prosecution countered that Lisa knew she was not pregnant, citing her sterilization, an insurance form where she stated she was not pregnant, and a forged letter she once used to claim she had donated a stillborn child's body to science. The prosecution also presented internet searches that Lisa had conducted on performing C-sections, underscoring her premeditation. On October 22, 2007, after 5 hours of deliberation, the jury found Lisa guilty. During the 2-day penalty phase, her family, friends, and doctors testified for her, asking for life imprisonment instead of the death penalty. Her biological father, who had left in 1971, admitted he regretted placing Lisa and her sister in their mother's custody. Still, the prosecution argued that Lisa had never been a good mother and pressed her daughter about whether Lisa had apologized for the suffering she had caused. The defense asked that jurors be instructed they were not required to impose death, but the court denied the request. On October 26, 2007, the jury officially sentenced Lisa to death. Her sister Diane screamed upon hearing the verdict. Once on federal death row in Fort Worth, Texas, Lisa finally received psychiatric care where doctors diagnosed her with psychosis, bipolar disorder, and post-traumatic stress disorder. They also found permanent brain damage from her earlier years of abuse. On April 4, 2008, her death sentence was affirmed. 3 years later, in April of 2011, her attorneys filed an appeal, but in March of 2012, the court denied their petition. Lisa Montgomery's execution was first set for December 8, 2020. However, just days before the scheduled date, members of her legal team contracted COVID-19, making it impossible for them to continue preparing her defense. Because of this, the execution was temporarily postponed. Federal officials soon rescheduled it for January 12, 2021, setting in motion what would become her final days. On New Year's Day 2021, a federal judge issued a stay of execution, citing serious concerns about Lisa's mental health. He ruled that her competence needed to be evaluated since it was arguable that she could not fully comprehend the reason for her punishment. This raised the possibility that carrying out the execution might violate constitutional protections. For a brief moment, it appeared that Lisa might escape the death penalty. That hope was short-lived, and in a divided 6-3 decision, the United States Supreme Court overturned the judge's ruling, clearing a way for the government to proceed. With that judgment, Lisa's execution date of January 12th was reinstated, and the countdown to her final days resumed. On the day of her execution, Lisa was moved from Texas, where she had requested the procedure to take place, to a federal prison in Indiana. Known as the site of federal executions, the facility was overwhelmingly male, making her placement there an unusual and haunting final chapter to her life. As the evening passed into midnight, Lisa was led into the execution chamber. When asked if she wished to speak before the lethal injection was administered, Lisa offered only a single word: no. With that, the process began. At 1:31 a.m. on January 13, 2021, Lisa Montgomery was pronounced dead. Her execution marked a grim historical moment. She became only the third woman executed by the U.S. federal government, the first female prisoner put to death in 67 years. What are your thoughts on the case of Lisa Montgomery and the tragic slaying of Bobby Joe Stinnett? Do you believe her mental illness should have spared her from the death penalty, or was justice rightly served? How should courts balance compassion for a troubled past with accountability for such horrific crimes? Share your thoughts in the comments down below. If you made it to the end, thank you for watching the video. If you found this case interesting, please like, subscribe, and follow me on social media for more true crime stories and updates. I'll see you next time with another unforgettable case. Until then, stay safe and take care.